Hi, my name's Montoya, and I've been homeless for 20 years. Let me start from the beginning, though. As a child, I had a mixed background. I was abused as a child along with my sisters, but I also had a lot of good times with my grandmother and my family as well. We did a lot of camping and we went out a lot. I unfortunately was taken from my family when I was 9 because of my mom's divorce with my father and the subsequent abuse that took place beforehand. I was in boys' homes from 9 to 12 and a half. I started my life homeless at 13. I did a lot of running away from my family's house. It just didn't feel like home to me. There was a lot of fighting between my mom and my stepdad. Their marriage was heading for divorce at the time, so it was just very difficult at times growing up. I know that I've always had a love for the homeless. It's been something that's been ingrained in me since I was a child. I used to give my family's change to the homeless when they would send me into the store for this or that. I'd bring the homeless home to my parents' house because I was a latchkey kid. And I figured if I had the resources, I should share them. And so I would bring them home to shower, make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I tried to do what I could when I was on the streets as a teenager to help the homeless community that was there. We had a good group of people when I was growing up. They were all Vietnam era hippies and veterans. I think that some of the best experiences I've had were on the streets because you get a different perspective and you get to see things from a different view, from a much simpler way of life. And there's a lot of wisdom on the streets. There really is. A lot of people out there that have a lot that they can offer and a lot that they can share if they could just get over their addictions. Because of hanging out with them, I became a ward of the state at 15. I was placed in group homes, and when I aged out, I had no financial support or emotional support or resource support from the county or the state. I was literally sent out of juvenile hall, the Clifton Tatum Center up there on Hillmont in Ventura. And I was released at probably 1, 2 in the morning, 18 years old, nowhere to go. Wouldn't even give me a bus token. And I remember going and heading to the bus stop that was around the corner because they were kind enough to tell me where that was. And my first night on the streets, I had everything stolen while I was asleep. I woke up and my shoes were gone, my bag full of belongings were gone, and it was a really rude awakening for me to realize that life was this hard because I had grown up relatively middle class. And it was a harsh reality for me to go from having my needs met to not knowing where my needs were going to be met. So I was homeless from 2000 until 2016. And in 2016, I moved to Maine. I got married and I started a nonprofit organization out there, PLC Street Team. We worked with the homeless. We fed them homemade bean, rice, and cheese burritos. We did that monthly, and we fed about 300 people a month. It was really eye-opening for me to be able to serve on a relatively large scale for 2 people, and just to see how much going out there and humanizing and spending time with people and hugging people and loving people can impact them. And I really appreciated that time of my life being able to do that. You know, there's a lot of addiction on the streets. I was an addict the beginning of my time on the streets up until I was about 24 years old. And it's hard to be in this lifestyle It's hard to see people in this lifestyle. You want to help, but you don't know how to help. I think one of the best ways we can help is to humanize, to befriend people, to remember that just because somebody's on the streets, just because somebody has no home or even chooses not to have a home, that doesn't make them any less human. I think that it's important for us to be aware of the differences that there are between the housed and the unhoused. I mean, there are things that we often take for granted when we're housed. When I was married and had a family and 2 kids, I took showers for granted because I could shower whenever I wanted. If I wanted to take 3 showers in one day, I could do that. And when you're homeless, you don't have access to that. And like when we see a dirty person on the bus, I think sometimes it frustrates us and we think to ourselves, why don't they clean themselves? Well, the reality is some of them can't find the places to clean themselves, or some of them the only place they have to wash their clothes is the public restroom and the toilet after they flushed it a bunch of times, or taking a shower in the sink at a public restroom after locking the door behind them. And so they're not able to get as clean as we would like them to be or as society would like them to be. There are a lot of things that we forget and we don't see when we look at homeless. And it's important for us to understand that the challenges are different for the housed and the unhoused. The housed have bills to worry about. The housed have their resources met most times. The unhoused, we don't have the same resources being met all the time. And on the flip side, we have less resources to pay the bills that we do have. Some of us have car payments, some of us have car insurance, some of us have phone bills. And I mean, like, we forget that homeless people have bills too. Homeless, I mean, we can't escape bills in this world today. And humanization and understanding the troubles and the turmoils that people have is important for us, I think. Today, I find myself homeless still. Divorce displaced me, and I've been trying to get back on my feet. I went from sleeping on the streets to sleeping in a tent to living in a van. I now have a car payment, and once that car payment is finished, I will have insurance and I have gas to worry about. But I am getting there, and there is hope for us. I'm at the point where I'm going to college now to pursue counseling because I want to be in a position where even if I choose to live in a car and be homeless, I have the ability to work and help others. And my story is not the norm because I do understand that a lot of the people on the streets are addicts. And here I am going on 14 years of sobriety. It was very difficult because when you're on the streets, there's addiction surrounding you everywhere you look, and you can't escape it. I mean, even today, I have friends on the streets that I talk to and I bring food to and I bring water to, and they'll break out a piece of foil and a lighter and a straw and start smoking fentanyl in front of me, or they'll break out a pipe and start smoking meth in front of me. And today, I find that it's much easier because I have the years of sobriety behind me. But when I was early on, if somebody broke a pipe out in front of me, I had to leave. Like, I couldn't be around that because I knew if I stayed around it too long, I would relapse. And I think it's important to understand that we have to find ways to help without enabling addiction. But on the flip side, like, it is important to understand, like, there are certain addictions that can kill you if you don't have the substance you're addicted to, such as alcoholism. If you have an alcoholic on the street and you withhold money because they're an addict, you could have killed that person. Because if they were unable to get alcohol that day and went into a seizure and died because of it, I mean, that is a cause from lack of access to the drug of their choice, which is alcohol. And it's important to understand that there are certain addictions out there that we do need to push for more social awareness and more social access to sobriety programs, especially for alcoholism, because alcoholism affects so many of the homeless, especially the veterans, the military veterans. I find that because in the military, alcohol is such a prevalent, acceptable source of fun and activity, that it continues even after they've gotten out and ended up homeless. And there's just so many aspects to homelessness that I think are overlooked. And I like to talk to people about that and share my insights, because I've been on the streets for 20 years of my life. Literally half of my life has been spent homeless and amongst the homeless. And I have a much different perspective. And I'm just here to remind everyone that, despite where you're at, where you've been, we all have something to offer, and we all are worth the space that we take. And whether you're active in addiction, whether you are living in a mansion, whether you're making six figures, or whether you're making $10,000 a year, you have something to provide this society. You have something to provide the community that you're a part of. And if you're not part of a community, you need to build a community for yourself and for those around you, because every one of us is worthwhile. Every one of us is beautiful. Every one of us has something, whether it be something minuscule or something grandiose. We all have something to offer. And some of us have more resources and less time, and some of us have more time and less resources. So we need to come together. We need to work together and find out what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are, and figure out how to get people working with those who have their strengths of the other's weakness, and those who have the weakness of the other's strength, so that we can get balanced work in this community. And I just want to remind you all that we are homeless. We are not less.